My name is Margaret Ellis, and I am 78 years old. For most of my life, I believed family was the safest place you could ever be. I raised my only son, Daniel, with every ounce of love in me after my husband passed away when Daniel was just a boy. I worked double shifts as a nurse, skipped meals so he could eat, and even sold my wedding ring to pay for his college tuition. I thought those sacrifices meant something. I thought they would make him love me forever. But I was wrong, terribly wrong. The night it happened, I was sitting quietly in the living room of my own house, knitting by the dim glow of the lamp. Daniel and his wife Rachel had moved in temporarily after he lost his job. That was almost a year ago, and the house that had been my safe haven now felt like a place where I had to tiptoe to avoid arguments. They whispered behind doors, controlled who visited me, and sometimes even skipped my meals, saying I was eating too much for someone who doesn't work. That night Rachel brought me tea. She smiled, which was unusual, because lately her smiles carried a sharp edge. "You must be tired, Margaret. Drink this and rest. You deserve it." The tea smelled bitter, but I forced a smile and took a sip. Moments later I felt dizzy. My knitting needles fell to the floor, clattering loud. My knees buckled. Before I knew it, Daniel's arms were under me, not with the care of a son, but with the cold efficiency of someone handling a chore. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "Daniel, what's happening?" "Just rest, Mom," he said, avoiding my eyes. I felt myself being dragged across the hallway. The basement door creaked open and cold air hit my face. "No, Daniel. What are you doing?" I screamed, but my voice was weak, fading. He didn't answer. Rachel stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, smiling that sharp smile. They shoved me into the basement, slammed the door, and locked it. The click of the lock was louder than my own heartbeat. I stumbled in the dark, my hands brushing against cold walls. The smell of mildew and dust filled my lungs. I banged on the door, screaming their names, but their footsteps faded. The only sound left was the sound of my own breath. The next morning I heard laughter upstairs. They were living their lives, eating, talking, pretending I didn't exist. Days passed. They left me water once, maybe twice, but no food. My legs grew weak, my throat parched. Rats scurried around the corners, and I cried into my hands, wondering how the child I gave my life to could be so cruel. On the third night, I overheard them talking above me. Rachel's voice was cold. "She won't last much longer. When she's gone, the house is ours. No one will question it." Daniel muttered something I couldn't hear, but his tone was firm. That was when I realized the bitter truth. They wanted me dead. They weren't even hiding it anymore. Something inside me shifted. I was weak, yes, but not broken. Not yet. I started saving the little energy I had. I stopped screaming for help and began listening to their routines, their patterns, the way they carelessly left keys hanging by the kitchen door. Every sound became a clue, every creak of the floor a map in my mind. On the fifth day, my body ached with hunger and thirst, but my mind was sharper than ever. I crawled to an old cabinet in the corner of the basement. My hands trembled as I pulled it open. Inside, dusty and forgotten, was a small box. Inside the box was the old deed to the house, one they clearly didn't know existed, and a set of rusty keys. My heart pounded. These keys could be my way out. The deed could be my weapon. But I was still trapped, too weak to climb the stairs even if I unlocked the door. I needed to wait. I needed to be smart. That night, I heard Daniel leaving for work and Rachel humming upstairs. She was alone. I knew this was my only chance. I dragged myself to the door, every movement burning my muscles. My fingers found the right key. I slipped it into the lock, praying it would turn. Did. The sound of the click was the sweetest music I had ever heard. As I opened the door slowly, the light from the hallway spilled onto my face. Rachel was in the kitchen, her back turned. She didn't hear me. With every ounce of strength left in me, I crept up the stairs. My heart raced, my breath shallow. When I finally reached the top, I stood there, watching her from the shadows, holding the deed tight against my chest. She turned around, and her face went white. "Margaret!" she gasped, dropping the cup she was holding. It shattered on the floor. I stepped forward, my voice hoarse but steady. "You thought I'd die down there, didn't you, Rachel?" Before she could answer, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. The sound of the engine made my heart leap. I had only seconds to act before he came in and overpowered me. What I did next would change everything. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right if you're shocked by what just happened. Wait until you hear what Margaret does next. Do you think she should call the police, or take her revenge in silence? Comment below, share your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. I stood there frozen at the top of the stairs, my hand gripping the doorframe for balance. Rachel's eyes darted between me and the front door, where Daniel's car was now idling. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the counter. For the first time in months, she wasn't the one in control. The fear on her face gave me a surge of strength I didn't know I had left. How?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You locked me in that basement for 5 days," I rasped, my throat raw from thirst. "You thought I wouldn't survive. But you forgot one thing." I held up the old property deed with shaking hands. "This house is still mine." Before Rachel could respond, Daniel entered the house. He froze when he saw me standing there, frail but defiant, like a ghost refusing to rest. His face drained of color. "Mom!" His voice cracked, a mix of shock and fear. I stood tall, even though every bone in my body ached. "Yes, Daniel. It's me. The mother you tried to kill." The room fell silent except for the sound of my shallow breathing. Rachel clutched Daniel's arm, but he shook her off and stepped toward me. "Mom, you don't understand. Don't you dare lie to me," I screamed, surprising even myself. My voice echoed through the house. "I heard you. I heard both of you plotting upstairs while I was starving in the dark. You wanted me dead so you could have this house." Daniel looked down, ashamed, while Rachel hissed. "She was supposed to." She stopped herself, biting her lip. I took a step forward. "Supposed to what, Rachel?" "Supposed to die quietly while you two vultures picked apart my life." They had no answer. My hand trembled, not from fear anymore but from rage. I had spent 5 days in the dark, thinking about all the times I had sacrificed for this boy. My only son, and this was how he repaid me. My chest tightened with pain, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't done yet. "Get out of my way," I said coldly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Mom, you need to rest. You're not thinking straight." I laughed bitterly. Not thinking straight. I've never thought clearer in my life. I walked past them, each step shaky but determined, until I reached the front door. I pushed it open and inhaled the crisp morning air. Freedom had never smelled so sweet. Behind me, Rachel started crying, but I didn't look back. I made my way to the neighbor's house, stumbling along the way, clutching the deed close to my chest. Mrs. Peterson, the elderly woman who lived next door, gasped when she saw me. "Margaret! Good heavens, what happened to you?" "They locked me in the basement," I croaked. "Call the police." Within minutes, the sirens wailed down the street. Daniel and Rachel tried to explain themselves, saying I was confused and old. But when the officers saw my condition and heard my statement, they believed me. Mrs. Peterson vouched for me, telling the officers she hadn't seen me outside for days. They were taken away for questioning. But here's the thing. Pressing charges wouldn't have been enough. Jail time might scare them, but I wanted something permanent, something that would remind them every single day of what they had done. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer, Mr. Edwards, who had been handling my estate for years. He was furious when he heard what happened. "Margaret, they could have killed you," he said. "I know," I whispered. "And that's why I need to make sure they never get their hands on this house." He assured me everything was still in my name, and with a few swift legal moves, we could not only secure the property but also ensure that Daniel and Rachel would never benefit from it. Not now, not ever. I instructed him to rewrite my will, leaving the house to a local women's shelter after my passing. That way, it would never fall into their greedy hands. When Daniel and Rachel were released on bail a few days later, they returned to find the locks changed and a legal notice taped to the door. "You are trespassing. Leave immediately." They screamed, they begged, they threatened, but I didn't open the door. I watched them from the window, my heart pounding, as they realized they had lost. But the war wasn't over. They started lurking around, trying to intimidate me, leaving notes in the mailbox, calling me names. One night I heard someone trying to break in through the back. I grabbed the old baseball bat my late husband kept by the bed and waited by the door. The handle jiggled, the door creaked, and then I swung with all my strength. The bat connected with something solid and there was a yelp of pain. Daniel stumbled back, clutching his arm. "Mom! It's me." "Not anymore," I spat. "You're not my son." The police came again and this time I pressed charges for attempted break-in. Daniel was arrested, and Rachel disappeared for a while. But even after they were gone, I couldn't shake the fear. I slept with the lights on, kept the bat by my side, and jumped at every sound. They had taken my trust, my peace of mind, and nearly my life. I was determined to take something far greater from them in return. With Mr. Edwards' help, I filed a restraining order and began the process of legally transferring full control of all my assets, cutting Daniel off completely. Every penny, every inch of this house, would now work against them. Weeks passed, and slowly, I began to feel stronger. I planted flowers in the garden, fixed the creaky stairs, and even repainted the walls. This was my home, and I would make it beautiful again. But just when I thought things were calming down, a letter arrived in the mail. An eviction notice. It claimed I had no right to live in my own house, signed by someone pretending to be the owner. My hands trembled as I read it. They were trying to scare me, to drive me out by any means necessary. But they didn't know I was ready for them. That night I stayed up, crafting my next move. If they wanted a fight, they were about to get one they would never forget. The next morning I called my lawyer again and told him everything. "Margaret," he said, "I have an idea. It's time we turn the tables completely." And that was exactly what we did. Weeks later, standing on my porch, I watched as Daniel and Rachel arrived with smug grins, thinking they had finally won. What they didn't know was that the house was no longer just mine. It was legally and publicly under my full ownership, secured with a court order that also banned them from coming within 50 feet of the property. As they stepped onto the lawn, the police pulled up. Their grins faded. The officers handed them documents, and I watched their faces fall as they read the words. "You have no legal claim to this property. Leave immediately or you will be arrested." Rachel screamed, Daniel cursed, but they were powerless. I stood there, frail yet unbroken, and said, "You tried to bury me in that basement. But I climbed out, and now I own everything you wanted." They left that day with nothing, and I stood taller than I had in years. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. People like them don't give up so easily. And I was right. Because that night, as I was sipping tea in my newly reclaimed living room, I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone. The back door creaked open. Someone was inside my house. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. What do you think Margaret should do now? Should she call the police again or handle this on her own? Comment your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. It's about to get even more intense. The creak of the back door sent an icy shiver down my spine. I froze, my teacup trembling in my hand. The house was silent except for the sound of my own breath. Slowly, I set the cup down and reached for the baseball bat leaning against the wall. The memory of being trapped in that basement still haunted me, but it also lit a fire in me. I would never be a victim again. I moved quietly through the darkened hallway, my ears straining to catch any sound. A floorboard groaned in the kitchen. My heart pounded, but my grip tightened on the bat. Whoever it was, they weren't going to catch me off guard. I stepped into the kitchen, and there he was, Daniel. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot like a man on the edge. He was holding a crowbar, and the sight of it made my stomach turn. "Daniel," I said, my voice low but firm. Put that down. He spun around, startled. Mom, you don't understand. This house, it should be mine. You're old, you don't need it. Rachel and I. You and Rachel tried to kill me. I cut him off. You think you deserve anything after that? He took a step toward me and I raised the bat. Don't you dare, I warned. For a moment we stood there staring at each other. Then he smirked. You wouldn't hurt me. You're my mother. You stopped being my son the moment you locked me in that basement, I said, my voice trembling with anger. Before he could react, I swung the bat and hit the crowbar out of his hand. It clattered to the floor, and he stumbled back. At that moment, the police sirens wailed outside. I'd called them earlier just in case. Daniel's face twisted in rage. You called the cops on me. They're here to make sure you never come near me again, I said coldly. The officers burst through the front door, guns drawn. They tackled Daniel to the ground and handcuffed him. As they dragged him away, he shouted, "This isn't over, Mom. You'll regret this." But I didn't regret it. Not one bit. After that night, I upgraded the security system, installed cameras, and reinforced every door and window. For a while, things were quiet. I started to heal, enjoying the peace I had fought so hard for. But deep down, I knew Daniel wasn't done. He was obsessed with this house, and obsession makes people dangerous. Sure enough, a few weeks later, I received a letter from his lawyer. Daniel was suing me, claiming I was mentally unfit to own property. He wanted to declare me incompetent and take control of everything. I sat at the kitchen table, reading the letter over and over, anger boiling inside me. After everything he'd done, he still wanted to destroy me. But this time I wasn't scared, I was ready. I called Mr. Edwards, my lawyer, and explained the situation. He laughed bitterly. "Margaret, we'll crush him in court. I'll make sure he never tries this again." The court date was set, and as the day approached, I prepared myself. I gathered medical records proving my mental health, photos of the bruises from the basement, and even recordings from the security cameras showing Daniel breaking in. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my dignity. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courtroom with my head held high. Daniel was there, looking smug with Rachel at his side. They thought they'd already won. But when the judge saw the evidence, everything they had done to me, their smug smiles disappeared. The judge's ruling was swift. Daniel's claims were dismissed, and a restraining order was placed against both him and Rachel. They were ordered to stay away from me permanently. After the ruling, Rachel stormed out of the courtroom, but Daniel stayed behind, glaring at me. "You think this is over?" "It's not," he hissed. I looked him straight in the eye. "It's over when I say it's over." For a few months, peace returned to my life. I started attending church again, joined a gardening club, and even reconnected with old friends. Life felt almost normal, until one evening I received an anonymous phone call. A distorted voice said, "We know what you did, Margaret. You took everything from him. Now you'll pay." The line went dead. My heart raced, but instead of fear, I felt a cold determination. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. Whoever they were about to learn that this old woman wasn't easy to break. That night, I called Mr. Edwards again. "I think it's time we take the final step," I told him. He hesitated. "You mean, transferring the title completely and cutting them off forever?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Not only that. I want the house put in a trust they can never touch, not even after I'm gone." He agreed, and within days the paperwork was done. My house was now legally untouchable, secured in a trust with me as the sole controller. Daniel and Rachel could never claim it, not now, not ever. But as I celebrated this small victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. Daniel was desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. One rainy night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, I heard a noise outside. Footsteps moving slowly around the house. I peered through the curtains and saw a shadow lurking near the garage. My heart pounded. Was it Daniel again? Or someone else? I grabbed my phone to call the police, but before I could dial, the power went out. The house was plunged into darkness. And then I heard the basement door creak open. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. What would you do if you were Margaret right now? Stay tuned, because in the next chapter, things take a terrifying turn you won't see coming. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The house was pitch black, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning slicing through the stormy night. My heart thudded in my chest as I clutched the baseball bat, moving cautiously toward the basement. The creaking sound continued, each step echoing through the silence like a warning. I paused at the top of the stairs, straining my ears. The smell of dampness rose from below, mixing with something metallic, something unsettling. A shadow moved across the dim glow of the lightning. Someone was down there. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling but strong enough to carry. No answer. Just the sound of slow, deliberate breathing. I tightened my grip on the bat and inched down the steps. Each creak of the wood beneath my feet felt deafening. When I reached the bottom, I swung the bat into the darkness. It hit nothing but air. And then fingers grabbed my arm. I screamed and swung wildly, hitting something solid this time. A grunt followed, and the figure stumbled back. Another flash of lightning revealed his face. Daniel. His eyes were wild, his clothes soaked from the rain. He looked less like a man and more like an animal cornered. Daniel, stop this! I shouted, backing away. You ruined my life, Mom, he roared, lunging at me. That house should be mine. He tackled me to the floor, and the bat slipped from my hand. Pain shot through my back, but I kicked and scratched, refusing to give in. I felt his hands around my neck, squeezing, and for a moment the world started to blur. But then my fingers brushed against something, a heavy metal pipe lying nearby. With every ounce of strength, I grabbed it and swung hard. It connected with his head, and he collapsed to the ground, groaning. I scrambled to my feet, gasping for air, and ran upstairs, locking the basement door behind me. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. My son broke into my house. He tried to kill me. Please hurry. Within minutes, flashing red and blue lights filled my driveway. Officers stormed inside, dragging Daniel out in handcuffs. His head was bleeding, his eyes burning with hatred. You'll regret this, Mom. You can't keep me away forever. But he was wrong. This time I pressed charges for attempted murder. The evidence was undeniable. Forced entry, bruises on my neck, security camera footage showing him sneaking around the house. Daniel was taken into custody and held without bail. The next few weeks were a blur of court hearings, therapy sessions, and long, sleepless nights. Even though he was behind bars, I couldn't shake the fear. I jumped at every sound, every shadow. But I also felt something else, pride. I had fought back. I had survived. Rachel, on the other hand, vanished completely. No calls, no letters, no sightings. Part of me hoped she had left Daniel and moved on, but another part feared she was plotting in the shadows. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon something shocking, an old envelope addressed to me in my late husband's handwriting. Inside was a letter explaining that the house had a hidden safe under the floorboards, containing important documents and a large sum of cash he had saved for emergencies. My heart raced as I pried open the floorboards in the corner of the attic and found the safe, just as he described. Inside were stacks of bills, bonds, and an old notebook detailing every asset my husband had ever owned. Assets no one, not even Daniel, knew about. This discovery changed everything. Not only was my house untouchable, but now I had the financial power to secure my future completely. I called Mr. Edwards and told him about the findings. He was stunned. Margaret, with this, you're not just safe, you're untouchable. I used part of the money to upgrade my home security to a state-of-the-art system with motion sensors, alarms, and 24-hour surveillance. I also donated a portion to the women's shelter I had planned to leave the house to one day. Helping others gave me a sense of purpose, a reason to keep fighting. But peace never lasts long when someone like Rachel is still out there. One night, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "You think you've won?" Attached was a blurry photo of my house taken from the street, just hours earlier. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. She was watching me. The next day, I contacted the police and showed them the email. They promised to increase patrols in the area, but deep down, I knew Rachel wouldn't be caught that easily. She was cunning, and she had nothing left to lose. For weeks, I lived on edge, checking every window, every lock. And then one evening, as I sat in the living room, the power went out again, just like the night Daniel broke in. The house was silent. I reached for my phone, but it was dead. The backup generator failed to start. Through the darkness, I heard a whisper, soft, cold, and unmistakably female. "Margaret." Froze. Rachel was inside the house. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. Things just got even more dangerous for Margaret. What would you do if you heard Rachel whispering in the dark? Stay tuned for the next chapter. It's going to be a chilling showdown you won't forget. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss it. The whisper slithered through the darkness, chilling me to my bones. "Margaret." Rachel's voice was low, almost taunting, like a predator toying with its prey. My hands trembled, but I gripped the metal pipe I had hidden under the couch for emergencies. The storm outside howled, rattling the windows. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the room. I caught a glimpse of Rachel's silhouette standing by the kitchen doorway. Her hair was soaked, her clothes clinging to her thin frame, and her eyes burned with hatred. "Rachel," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "Leave my house before it's too late." She laughed, a cold, eerie sound. "Too late. You took everything from me. You humiliated me. This was supposed to be ours, Daniel's and mine. You're just an old woman who doesn't know when to let go." "I let go when I forgave you the first time," I said, inching toward the panic button on the wall, careful not to draw her attention. "But you chose to keep coming back." Her smile twisted into something sinister. "Tonight it ends, Margaret. One way or another." She lunged at me and I swung the pipe. The metal connected with her shoulder, and she screamed, dropping the knife she had hidden behind her back. I kicked it away and hit the panic button. Within seconds, the alarm blared, its piercing sound shaking the house. Rachel scrambled to her feet, snarling like a cornered animal. "You think the police will save you? You think you've won? You're not leaving here with anything," I said, my voice cold as ice. She charged again, but this time I was ready. I sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and shoved her toward the door just as flashing red and blue lights appeared outside. Officers stormed in, tackling her to the ground. She thrashed and screamed, her face contorted with rage, but they pinned her down and cuffed her. As they dragged her away, she spat, "This isn't over, Margaret. You'll never sleep peacefully again." But I didn't answer. I simply watched as the woman who had caused me so much pain was finally taken away. After they were gone, the house felt strangely quiet. The alarm stopped, the storm eased, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of peace. I sat down, clutching my chest, breathing hard. I had survived again. The next morning, Officer Hayes, the kind officer who had responded to my calls before, came by to reassure me. "Rachel's being charged with attempted murder, breaking and entering, and a long list of other crimes," he said. "She won't be seeing the outside world anytime soon." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you, officer." But he hesitated before leaving. "There's something else, Margaret." We searched her car. "We found blueprints of your house, surveillance photos, and plans to set it on fire." My stomach dropped. "She wanted to burn me alive," I whispered. "Yes," he said grimly. "But you stopped her." After he left, I sat in the living room, staring at the walls. This house had seen so much. Love, loss, betrayal, and now survival. I realized it wasn't just a building. It was my fortress, my proof that I had endured. I decided to reinforce it even further. With the hidden cash my late husband had left, I hired a team to install bulletproof windows, steel doors, and a high-end security fence. No one would ever break in again. Life slowly returned to normal. I tended my garden, baked pies, and even started inviting neighbors over for tea. I told myself it was over. But late at night, as I sat by the window, I sometimes thought about Daniel. He was still in prison awaiting trial. And I knew in my heart that he hadn't let go of his hatred. Weeks later I received a letter. No return address. My hand shook as I opened it. The handwriting was Daniel's. "You may think you're safe, Mom. But prison walls can't hold me forever. When I get out, I'll take what's mine. You can't hide behind your locks and fences forever. You'll see me again." I folded the letter slowly, my heart pounding. For a moment, fear threatened to swallow me. But then I remembered something. He was the one locked away, not me. I was free. I had survived every attempt to break me. Instead of fear, I felt anger. Controlled, cold anger. If he wanted a war, he'd get one. But it would be on my terms. I called Mr. Edwards the next morning. "I want everything tightened. Legally, financially, everything," I told him. "If Daniel ever gets out, I want him to find nothing waiting for him." He chuckled. "Margaret, by the time I'm done, he won't even have a penny to his name." As I hung up, I looked out at my blooming garden. Life was fragile, yes, but I had learned something powerful. You don't survive by hiding. You survive by fighting. Still at night, I sometimes heard echoes of Rachel's whisper, felt the weight of Daniel's threats. And one evening, as I watered the roses, I noticed something on the fence, a single red ribbon tied to the gate. It wasn't there before. Froze. Someone had been here, watching me, leaving a message. When I looked closer, I saw a note attached to it. My hands trembled as I read the words. "See you soon." My heart pounded. Was it Daniel, Rachel, or someone else entirely? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. This battle wasn't over. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. The red ribbon changes everything. Who left it? What does it mean for Margaret? Comment your theories and don't miss the next chapter, where the fight for survival takes a shocking new turn. Like, share, and subscribe to follow the story. The red ribbon swayed in the evening breeze, taunting me with its quiet presence. I stood there, staring at it for what felt like an eternity, the words on the note echoing in my head. "See you soon." I removed it carefully, scanning the yard, the street, every shadow. Nobody was there, yet I felt eyes on me. I locked the gate, double-checked every door and window, and went inside, clutching the ribbon in my trembling hand. For the next few days, my nerves were on edge. I checked the cameras repeatedly, rewound footage, and saw nothing unusual. No intruders, no cars stopping nearby. Whoever left the ribbon knew how to avoid detection. Then, late one night, I heard footsteps again. Light, calculated, circling the house. I peered through the curtains, and there, standing at the edge of my garden, was a figure. Too far to make out the face, but tall, lean, and unmoving. I grabbed my phone and called 911. By the time the police arrived, the figure was gone. They searched the area and found nothing but a single footprint in the mud, leading toward the woods. "This isn't random," Officer Hayes told me. "Whoever is doing this knows you and wants to scare you." "I already know who it is," I said through clenched teeth. "It's Daniel." But Officer Hayes shook his head. "Daniel is still in custody. He hasn't been released." That revelation sent a chill down my spine. If it wasn't Daniel, then who? The next morning, I received another letter in the mail, this one written in elegant cursive. "You took what wasn't yours. Now it's time to pay the price. No name. No return address." My instincts told me Rachel had someone working for her. She may have been locked away, but she still had influence. Maybe a relative. Maybe a friend. Whoever it was, they were dangerous. I went straight to my lawyer, Mr. Edwards, and showed him the letters and the ribbon. He frowned. "Margaret, this is escalating. You need more than cameras. You need legal protection, private security, and possibly relocation." No, I said firmly. I won't run. This is my house. I survived everything they've thrown at me, and I'm not giving it up. He nodded, impressed by my resolve. Then we'll fight. But you need to be ready for anything. I hired a private security team to patrol the property at night. For a while things calmed down. The presence of armed guards seemed to scare off whoever was lurking. But deep down I knew it was only temporary. A week later I returned home from the grocery store and found my front door wide open. My heart nearly stopped. I stepped inside cautiously, clutching a kitchen knife. The house was eerily quiet. When I reached the living room I froze. On the coffee table was a single photo, an old picture of me, Daniel, and Rachel smiling at a barbecue years ago. Across it, in red marker, were the words, "Family never forgets." I called the police, and they searched every inch of the house. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Whoever did this had a key. I changed all the locks again, but the sense of violation lingered. That night I sat awake staring at the photo. Memories of better days flooded back. Days when Daniel still loved me, when Rachel wasn't a threat, when this house was filled with laughter instead of fear. I wiped away tears and whispered to myself, "They won't win. Not again." The next morning, I visited the prison to confront Daniel. When I told him about the ribbon and the photo, he smirked. "I told you, Mom. Friends. You can't stop all of us." "You're pathetic," I said coldly. "You'll rot in there while I live my life." His smirk faded, replaced by a glare of pure hatred. "We'll see about that." I walked out of that prison with my heart pounding. His words were a threat, but they also gave me clarity. Daniel still had contacts outside, and they were helping him torment me. If I wanted to end this nightmare, I had to find out who they were and cut them off for good. That night I devised a plan. I called Officer Hayes and the private investigator I had hired. "Set up traps around the property," I said. "If they come back, we'll catch them." They placed hidden motion detectors and cameras in places no one would expect. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the 3rd night, the alarm went off. I watched from the surveillance room as a masked figure crept across the yard, heading straight for the back door. Before they could break in, the floodlights blazed on, and security rushed out, tackling them to the ground. When they pulled off the mask, my heart stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was Rachel's brother, Luke. Under interrogation, he confessed Rachel had orchestrated everything from jail, sending him to scare me into leaving the house. She promised him a share if he succeeded. With his testimony, Rachel was hit with new charges, extending her sentence indefinitely. Luke was locked away too. For the first time in months, I felt like the nightmare was finally over. I stood on my porch, watching the sunrise, feeling stronger than ever. But as peace settled over me, something unexpected happened. I received a call from my lawyer. "Margaret, you need to sit down for this," he said. "What is it?" I asked, my chest tightening. "There's been an emergency hearing. Daniel's lawyer filed an appeal, and he's been granted early release due to a technical error." My world tilted. Daniel was free. And he was coming for me. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. Daniel is out. What will he do now that he's free? What would you do if you were Margaret? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the tension reaches new heights. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. When I hung up the phone, my hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. Daniel was free. The man who locked me in a basement to die, who sent people to terrorize me, was out walking in the open. And I knew, without a doubt, he wouldn't stop until he had what he wanted. I immediately called Officer Hayes. "He's out. You have to do something." "I know, Margaret," he said, his voice steady. "We're keeping an eye on him. But he's legally free now. As long as he doesn't violate the restraining order, our hands are tied." Tied. My stomach churned. A piece of paper wasn't going to stop Daniel. He'd already proven he had no respect for the law. I spent the next few days on high alert, rarely leaving the house. My security team was back on full duty, but even with them I felt uneasy. I started sleeping with the lights on again, a baseball bat by my side. Every noise outside made my heart race. 3 nights later I saw him. It was around midnight, and the rain was falling in thin sheets. I stood by the window, watching the drops streak down the glass, when a movement caught my eye. At the edge of the yard, near the old oak tree, stood Daniel. He wasn't hiding. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, staring straight at the house. Me. I locked eyes with him through the darkness. His expression was calm, too calm. After a few moments, he smirked and slowly walked away, disappearing into the night. The next morning I found a dead crow on my porch with a note pinned to it. "The house will be mine." My blood ran cold. I called the police, but without concrete proof of a crime, there was nothing they could do. Officer Hayes promised to increase patrols, but I could tell from his tone he knew this was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel kept circling my life like a predator. I'd see him across the street, at the grocery store, even near the church. Always watching, never speaking. He was trying to break me psychologically, but he underestimated me. I decided to turn the tables. If he wanted to play games, I would win them. I hired a private investigator to follow him, document everything, and gather evidence of any violation of the restraining order. Meanwhile, I fortified the house even more. Steel shutters, reinforced gates, and security cameras that could catch a fly in midair. One night, the investigator called. "We've got something," he said. "Daniel's meeting with some shady characters at an abandoned warehouse. Looks like he's planning something big." My chest tightened. "Keep watching him. Record everything." 2 nights later, my investigator delivered footage that made my blood run cold. Daniel was seen handing money to a man who sold him what looked like explosives. My hands trembled as I watched the video. He wasn't just planning to break in this time. He was planning to destroy everything. I took the footage straight to Officer Hayes and Mr. Edwards. The police opened an investigation, but they needed more evidence to act immediately. Meanwhile, my lawyer advised me to leave the house temporarily for my safety. "No," I said. "That's what he wants. He wants me gone." But I wasn't reckless either. I stayed inside for the next few days, waiting, watching. The tension in the air was suffocating. Then came the night that changed everything. The storm outside was fierce, wind howling like a beast. I was sitting in the living room when the lights suddenly flickered and went out. My backup generator failed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Tonight ends it. Say goodbye to your house." My heart raced. I grabbed the security monitor, switching to the outdoor cameras. There he was, Daniel, walking through the storm carrying a large bag. I dialed 911 with trembling hands. "He's here. He's trying to burn my house down." The dispatcher assured me help was on the way, but I knew it might be too late. Daniel was at the garage now, pulling something from the bag. Through the rain and lightning, I saw the glint of metal, gasoline canisters. I ran to the back door, locked it, and grabbed the baseball bat. My security team wasn't on shift that night. They had been rescheduled due to the storm. It was just me and him. I moved upstairs to the bedroom window and shouted, "Daniel, stop this." He looked up, rain streaming down his face, and shouted back, "If I can't have it, no one will." He splashed gasoline across the garage door and struck a lighter. My heart leapt into my throat. Flames erupted, lighting up the night. But then, the blaring of police sirens filled the air. 2 patrol cars came screeching into the driveway. Daniel dropped the lighter, but it was too late. The garage was already on fire. Officers tackled him to the ground as firefighters rushed to extinguish the flames. I stood by the window, watching the chaos unfold below. Daniel screamed my name, thrashing against the officer's grip. "This isn't over, Mom. You hear me? This isn't." His voice was drowned out by the rain and the shouting. They dragged him away, and the fire was contained before it reached the main house. My knees gave out, and I collapsed to the floor, sobbing from relief and exhaustion. The next day, the police confirmed Daniel was facing multiple charges, including arson, attempted murder, and violation of the restraining order. He was denied bail this time. The judge made it clear he would not be leaving prison again. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that his hatred would never truly die. A week later, Mr. Edwards came to visit me. "Margaret," he said with a smile, "the house is now fully secured under the trust we set up. Legally, no one but you can ever claim it. Daniel has lost everything." For the first time in months, I felt truly safe. Or so I thought. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a soft tapping at my window. When I pulled back the curtain, there was nothing but darkness. Then I looked down and saw a message scrawled on the glass in red paint. "You may have won the house, but you'll never win peace." My breath caught in my throat. Someone was still out there. Someone still wanted me gone. And I knew, with a sinking feeling, that this war was far from over. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. Who left that terrifying message? Is Daniel's influence still reaching out from prison? Next chapter will reveal a twist you won't see coming. Stay tuned, comment your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The red words on the glass dripped slowly, as if they were alive, as if whoever wrote them had only just left. My heart pounded in my chest. I stepped back, clutching my chest as a sharp pain raced through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I could not let fear win. Not now. I called the police immediately, and Officer Hayes arrived with his team. They examined the paint, took photos, and checked the perimeter, but as usual, there were no fingerprints, no footprints, no sign of anyone. Whoever had done it was smart. "Margaret, this is psychological warfare," Hayes said, his face grim. "Daniel might be locked up, but he still has people on the outside. This message wasn't random. It was a warning. A warning." I spent the rest of the night sitting in the living room with all the lights on, the baseball bat in my lap. I didn't sleep a wink. At dawn, I walked outside to breathe the cold morning air, and that's when I saw it. Another red ribbon tied to the gate, fluttering in the breeze. This one had no note, just a silent threat. I ripped it down, my hands trembling. Enough was enough. That day, I met with Mr. Edwards and told him, "We need to end this once and for all. I can't live like this." He leaned back in his chair and said, "Margaret, I have been working on something. Since the house is untouchable under the trust, there's nothing they can legally do. But we can take it further. We can seize any assets connected to Daniel's allies, cut off his funding entirely." "Yes," I said firmly. "Do it. Drain every resource he has. Let them feel the desperation they wanted me to feel." Mr. Edwards nodded. "It will take time, but I'll make it happen." That night, I decided to bait whoever was stalking me. I told the security team to keep a low profile and set up hidden cameras around the property. I left the curtains slightly open, leaving the impression that I had gone to bed early. Hours passed. The wind howled and the house creaked. Just when I thought no one would come, a shadow moved near the fence. My pulse quickened as I watched the camera feed. The figure slipped inside the yard, crouched low, and headed for the back door. When they reached the steps, the floodlights snapped on, and the alarm screamed. The intruder froze like a deer in headlights before sprinting toward the gate, but the police, who had been waiting nearby, pounced. The figure struggled, screaming, but the officers subdued them quickly. I rushed outside and froze when I saw who it was. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't even Rachel's brother. It was Rachel herself. She had escaped custody 2 nights earlier, and no one had realized it yet. Her hair was matted, her clothes torn, her eyes wild with rage. "You think you can beat me?" she shrieked as they dragged her away. "You stole everything from me. You'll burn for this, Margaret." The police took her back into custody, and this time they placed her in a maximum security facility. Officer Hayes assured me she would never get out again. For a while, peace returned. I slept better, ate better, and even began hosting small gatherings with friends. I thought the worst was behind me. But life has a cruel way of surprising you. One evening, as I sat reading by the fire, my phone buzzed with a video message from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it. The video showed Daniel in prison, smiling directly at the camera. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I heard Rachel failed. Don't worry, though. Have other plans. You can fortify that house all you want. It won't matter when the people you trust are the ones helping me." The video ended, leaving me frozen in place. The people I trust. My security team. My lawyer. My heart pounded. Paranoia seeped into my thoughts. I started watching everyone closely, wondering who might betray me next. The next day, one of my security guards, a young man named Ethan, didn't show up for his shift. When I called his phone, it was disconnected. 2 days later, Officer Hayes told me Ethan had been spotted meeting with someone who fit Daniel's description of an associate. Betrayal. Just like Daniel said. I replaced the entire security team, hired only the most vetted professionals, and even kept my own camera system hidden from them. Every move I made was calculated, every decision weighed. Then came the stormy night that would change everything forever. The wind howled like a screaming banshee, and the rain battered the windows. I was sitting in the living room when the power went out, again. My backup generator kicked in, but only partially. The lights flickered, and the cameras went offline. A loud crash came from the backyard. I grabbed the baseball bat, my heart pounding like a drum. I crept toward the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. Flames rising from the shed. They were here. Through the smoke and fire, I saw multiple figures rushing toward the house. Daniel's allies. I ran upstairs, barricading myself in the bedroom while dialing the police. My voice trembled as I told them what was happening. The operator assured me help was on the way, but I could hear the intruders smashing through the doors. The house trembled with chaos. Footsteps, shouting, the smell of smoke. I braced myself, holding the bat tight, praying I would survive the night. Then I heard the door to my bedroom splinter. I raised the bat, ready to fight for my life one last time. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. Margaret is facing her deadliest night yet. Will she survive the final assault on her home? Don't miss the next chapter. It's the most intense chapter yet. Like, share, and comment your thoughts below. The bedroom door groaned under the force of the intruder's kicks. Each strike made my heart jump, but fear was no longer the strongest feeling inside me. Rage was. This was my home. I had bled, starved, and fought to keep it. Tonight I would not let them take it. The door cracked, splintering down the middle. Smoke from the burning shed seeped through the cracks, choking the air. I coughed, tightening my grip on the bat, and whispered to myself, "Not this time." The door burst open, and 2 masked men rushed in. I swung the bat with all my strength, hitting the first one in the side of his head. He fell to the floor, groaning. The second man lunged at me, but I jabbed the bat into his stomach and kicked him back. "Grab her!" one of them shouted, but I was already moving. I ran toward the secret crawlspace behind my closet, a place only I knew about. I slipped inside and pulled the panel shut just as they scrambled to their feet. I held my breath as they searched the room, tearing it apart. "Where is she?" one of them growled. "She's hiding. Find her." My hands shook, but I stayed silent. I could hear their boots stomping, furniture crashing, drawers being pulled out. They didn't find the panel. After a few tense minutes, they left the room. Through a small gap, I saw them run downstairs. Their voices were muffled, but I caught pieces of their conversation. Daniel said, "Burn it down if we can't find her." My stomach dropped. They were going to set the house on fire with me still inside. I crawled out of the space and slipped out the back hallway, my footsteps as silent as possible. The house creaked with every movement, but the storm outside covered most of the noise. I grabbed my phone, which I had hidden earlier in case they tried to destroy it, and dialed Officer Hayes. "They're in the house. They're going to burn it," I whispered. "Stay hidden, Margaret. Units are on their way." "Just stay alive," he said, his voice urgent. But staying hidden wasn't enough anymore. If they burned the house, everything I had fought for would turn to ashes. I needed to stop them. I crept toward the kitchen and saw one of the intruders pouring gasoline on the floor. My chest tightened. Quietly, I reached for the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. As he bent down to light a match, I slammed the extinguisher into the back of his head. He collapsed instantly. The second man turned, knife in hand, and charged at me. I sprayed the extinguisher in his face, blinding him, then hit him across the jaw with the metal canister. He fell to the floor unconscious. Just then, the third man appeared in the doorway, pulling a gun from his jacket. My heart stopped. Before he could fire, flashing red and blue lights filled the windows. Police sirens blared, and officers stormed into the house. The man with the gun fled through the back door, disappearing into the storm. The other two were handcuffed where they lay. I stood there, shaking, covered in sweat and ash, as Officer Hayes ran to me. "Margaret, are you hurt?" "No," I said, my voice trembling. "But they tried to burn it, they tried." He put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now. We'll catch the one who ran." The officers dragged the captured men outside. Under questioning, they revealed what I had feared. They were working directly under Daniel's orders, smuggling messages and money into the prison to organize the attack. That same night, Daniel's privileges in prison were revoked. He was placed in solitary confinement with no contact to the outside world. The authorities promised this time there would be no loopholes, no mistakes. The house was damaged but still standing. As the firefighters put out the last of the flames in the shed, I stood in the rain, staring at the smoldering remains. This was my home, and they had tried to destroy it yet again. Mr. Edwards arrived later, looking both furious and relieved. "Margaret, this ends tonight. I'm taking every last asset Daniel has, freezing every account tied to him. By the time I'm done, he won't even be able to buy a stamp to send you a letter." I nodded, tears mixing with the rain. "Do it. End this." Over the next few days, the police increased security around my house. The captured attackers gave up more names, leading to a network of Daniel's supporters being dismantled. Rachel remained locked away with no chance of release. Slowly, the storm that had hovered over my life began to clear. For the first time in months, I felt the warmth of the sun on my face as I walked through my garden. The roses were blooming, their colors bright against the chaos of the past weeks. I felt proud, stronger than ever. But peace never lasts long in my story. 1 week later, I received a letter from Daniel. This time it came through official prison channels, stamped and screened by authorities. Inside was a single piece of paper with only one sentence. "You may own the house, but you'll die in it." My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. Instead, I burned the letter in my fireplace, watching the flames consume it until nothing remained but ash. I turned to the house, my fortress, my proof of survival, and whispered, "Let him come. I'll be ready." That night, as I locked the doors, I noticed something strange. A light was flickering in the attic, one I hadn't turned on. I climbed the stairs slowly, every step creaking beneath me. When I reached the attic door, I pushed it open and froze. On the floor was a single candle burning, surrounded by photos of me, all taken recently, all with red X's across my face. And in the corner, written on the wall in red paint, were the words, "Final warning." My blood ran cold. Someone was still inside the house. To be continued. Backhand index pointing right. Who left the final warning? Is Daniel still controlling the game? Or is there another enemy hiding in the shadows? Next chapter is the explosive finale you've been waiting for. Don't miss it. Like, comment, and subscribe to see how it all ends. The candle flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the attic walls. The smell of smoke mixed with the metallic scent of paint. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the storm outside. The photos stared back at me. Dozens of them, all of me, taken from angles that meant someone had been watching my every move. The words "final warning" dripped slowly down the wall like fresh blood. I gripped the baseball bat tighter, forcing my breathing to stay steady. "Who's here?" I called into the darkness, my voice echoing off the attic beams. For a moment there was silence. Then, from behind a stack of boxes, a figure stepped out. A man in black, his face hidden behind a mask. "So," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat, "Daniel sent you, didn't he?" The man didn't answer. He raised a knife instead, glinting in the candlelight. My knees felt weak, but I stood my ground. "You want to kill me? You'll have to work harder than that." With a roar he charged at me. I swung the bat with all the strength left in my old bones, connecting with his arm. The knife clattered to the floor, but he kept coming, tackling me to the ground. My back slammed against the wooden floorboards, pain shooting through me, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I grabbed the knife and slashed at his leg. He screamed, staggering back. I scrambled to my feet, blood pounding in my ears, and raised the bat again. Just then the attic door burst open. Officer Hayes and 2 officers stormed in, guns drawn. "Drop it," they shouted. The masked man hesitated, then tried to lunge at me one last time, but Hayes fired a warning shot and the man froze. The officers tackled him to the ground and ripped off his mask. My heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was Ethan, the former security guard who had disappeared weeks ago. His eyes were cold, empty. "They promised me money," he spat as they cuffed him. "Daniel promised me everything if I finished the job." Hayes looked at me with relief and frustration. "You're lucky to be alive, Margaret. This ends now. No more chances for them to reach you." The police dragged Ethan away, and I sat on the attic floor, trembling. The photos, the candle, the writing, it was all a twisted message. Daniel's reach had extended too far, but now his last pawn had fallen. Over the following days, Ethan confessed everything. He had been secretly receiving instructions smuggled out of the prison. Each plan was more desperate than the last. But with Ethan captured and the network dismantled, Daniel's influence finally crumbled. Daniel was sentenced to life in a maximum security prison with no possibility of parole. Rachel's sentence was extended as well. They would rot behind bars for the rest of their lives. The house was cleaned, the attic repainted, and the photos destroyed. I stood in my garden one morning, feeling the sun warm my face. The roses were in full bloom, vibrant and alive, just like me. Neighbors began visiting again, offering support, baking pies, planting flowers with me. Slowly, my home felt like home once more. Not a fortress of fear, but a place of strength. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with orange and purple hues, Mr. Edwards stopped by. "Margaret," he said, handing me a folder. "It's official. You are the sole, permanent owner of this house. No one can ever take it from you." Tears filled my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. That night, I brewed myself tea and sat by the window, looking out at the garden lights twinkling softly. For the first time in months I felt peace. Not the fragile peace of pretending everything was fine, but the real kind, the kind that comes when you've fought for it and won. I thought of Daniel and Rachel, rotting in their cells, and Ethan behind bars. I thought of every night I had survived the terror they sent my way. They had trapped me in a basement, tried to burn me alive, sent killers to my door. But I came out stronger. I came out owning not just the house, but my life. As I sipped my tea, I whispered to the empty room. "You failed. All of you. And I'm still here." The wind rustled the curtains softly, almost like an answer. For the first time I believed it was over. But as I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I couldn't help glancing back at the window. Somewhere out there, maybe in the shadows, maybe in my own imagination, I thought I saw a figure watching. I smiled bitterly. "Come back if you dare," I muttered. "This time I'll be ready." Because I was no longer the old woman they thought they could break. I was Margaret Ellis, the survivor. Backhand and ex-pointing right. Did you love Margaret's story of survival and strength? What would you have done in her place? Comment your thoughts, share this with friends, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support keeps these stories alive.